Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Preston here, and this is my post-fight reaction to David Benavidez defeating um, Anthony Yarde by, I believe it was an eighth round TKO or a knockout. I think it was a knockout. I think, and shit like that. But yeah, and shit like that. You know what I mean? But great victory for David Benavidez. Honestly, I was kind of like worried for David Benavidez, like for starting the fight, because I was like, damn, like because Yarde was like getting it was like boxing well, utilizing the jab, just like what I was saying, like utilizing the jab very well. Utilizing his distance, utilizing his strength, and it's like every single shot, it's like Benavidez was like he was like his head kept bobbing back like profusely, man, and shit like that, and it looked like those shots were like knockout punches, you know what I mean? Knowing David Benavidez has a good chin, but it looked like those shots it looked like it could have been any moment where Anthony Yarde was gonna drop David Benavidez, and shit like that, so I was just close up to the screen. I was like just watching that shit, bro, like literally, man, and shit like that, but I'm just saying, and shit like that. But David Benavidez did a beautiful job pulling through, utilized the like quickly knowing what he needs to do to capitalize and shit like that, because that was a quick turnaround of an event and shit like that. Once Benavidez, I think he caught him with like a counter, like the first punch that hurt Anthony Yarde. After that, it was all Benavidez. After that, like there was no more of Yarde in that fight. Once Benavidez hurt Yarde, and shit like that. Because after that, then every single round Benavidez was just beating the crap out that dude. Like like combos. You know what I mean? Like literally, man. Like it just like. But I just feel like he didn't really need all them like fast combos really to win. Like I feel like he proved in this fight that he can singly knock you out, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing and shit. Like I feel like there's a lot, because this is something for years now that everybody would be saying and shit, and stuff like that. Where Benavidez, like he is the type of fighter and shit like that, where like Benavidez is the type of fighter, and shit like that, where he can only knock you out with variations of punches, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing and shit like that, like he was like that was not no variations of punches, dude. That was literally just putting his punches through, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like literally, like I'm just saying, like Benavidez was very patient in this fight, and shit like that, understanding the moment, understanding what he's going against, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing, man, and shit like that. And Benavidez calculated this fight very well. Overall, Yarde, like, I mean, my dad says that like Yarde ain't as good as what everybody's thinking, but honestly though, like I think Yarde is a good fighter. I just think what it is that his chin is very weak, and shit like that, like he has a glass chin, and shit like that, made out of the finest thin glass, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing and shit, and that's the thing and shit like that, all due respect, man, but all that muscle, bro, like that chin ain't nothing compared to that muscle. Like he could eat them, like even though them body shots were even hurting him too, like and shit like that, but he can still take body shots. But anytime he gets hit in the face flesh, he's gonna get ragdolled, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, like, or rattled, like do a little shaky shake, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Because yeah, man, and shit like that, it's just like, like either way. Either way, I mean, Yarde is still Yarde, and Yarde is still a good fighter in my opinion. I just think styles definitely make fights when it comes down to this dude, and shit like that. You know what I mean? I just feel like because like even if you're going against especially against somebody like Dimitri Bivol, and shit like that, Bivol is gonna like I'll be surprised if Bivol didn't. Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'll be kind of disappointed if Bivol didn't knock out Anthony Yarde, because he has the power, the heavy hands too, and stuff like that, and the output too. But it's just more about the mindset and shit like that, with Dimitri Bivol. And I've been a Bivol fan for so many. I watched like damn near almost like every, I wouldn't say every single fight, but I've at least watched at least a good TED fights of Dimitri Bivol, because I see that Joe Smith fight. I see the beat up like fucking 3 random dudes in Russia, and stuff like that. I wasn't in Russia, but I'm just saying on TV and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then after that, I seen him fight. I seen him fight a bunch of dudes. Canelo. I see. Oh yeah, I seen him outbox Canelo. And shit like that. You know what I mean? And then I seen him, and then I seen both of the fights with him and Dimitri, with him and Archer Better BF, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm probably missing a few other fights that I've seen of him, and shit like that. You know what I mean? But I've watched a bunch of fights of Dimitri Bivol, and shit like that. David Benavidez, I've watched, like, I feel like almost every single of his fights, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, I watched from, like, his upcoming, and shit like that, like, to, like, now, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing and shit like that. Like I'm not gonna say every fight, but enough to say that it was definitely throughout, like, definitely way before when he got to this moment, and way before other moments and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing and shit like that. I've been covering David Benavidez for basically all of my times of covering boxing, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, I covered that fight, like, a long time ago, like, during COVID, when he fought that one dude. I think it was oh, what's his name? It was oh my gosh. And he got beat by this in later on the dude got beat by this one like this, like, I think his, like, name is Yoelvis Hernandez, I think. And shit like that, you know what I mean? But Kelvin Davis. Not Kelvin Davis. That's Keyshawn Davis's brother. It was fuck, I forgot what it was. I think it might have been Kelvin Davis, and shit like that, you know what I mean? But I don't even know and stuff like that. But I covered that. But either way, enough of blabbering, and shit like that, But I'm just saying, man, like, David Benavidez is really doing his thing. Like, he don't need Canelo for him to do good. Like, I'm just saying, man, he don't need Canelo for him to do all of this good, and shit like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, and stuff like that, because, like, I'm just saying, and shit like that, like, he don't need Canelo to do all this, for him and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, look at all his belts and what he has. He got so many straps on him, it's crazy, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's wild, you know what I mean? Like, and it just, now he wants to go up to cruiserweight, and he wants to fight Zurdo. And I'm not gonna lie, though, like, I think he could fight better fights other than Zurdo, in my opinion, and shit like that. Like, I'm just being honest. Like Zurdo's good, but it's just more of like Zurdo ain't, like, I mean, like, overall they are on each other's level, quote unquote, and shit like that. Because, I mean, they both have belts and they both have, like, the record to prove that they are, and in the rankings. But it just, we all know that David Benavidez is gonna destroy Zurdo, man. It might be a tough fight though, a little bit, but it's a matter. But it's just like it's either I see Benavidez stopping Zurdo, or I see it going the distance by a clean unanimous decision. I just think, like, Zurdo isn't not even close to technically sound like David Benavidez. Like, I am just saying, like, David would pick him apart so easily. Like, I am just saying. Like, literally, like, I'm just genuinely saying, like, dude, like, man, like, I would be surprised if those odds were close, man. Like, literally, like, because Zurdo don't even got the speed for, like, the only thing he really got, is a slight tad bit of power, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing and shit like that. And overall, like, Zurdo hasn't been in cruiserweight all of his career. I mean, he's had several fights there that label him to have experience in that weight class. But, like, overall, it's like he ain't like a crypt keeper of that division, bro. Like, I'm just saying, like, Benavidez can easily go and walk through this dude, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, I am just saying, easily go and walk through this dude, and shit like that. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying and shit, and stuff like that, and yeah, and shit like that, because, bro, like, Zurdo, he's a good ass fighter. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Zurdo is a like Zurdo is a good fighter. You know what I mean? He has his levels to prove of why he's a good fighter. But I'm just saying, against against like David, like I've like, but it's just more of like. It's just if that's the fight, that's the fight, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying, and shit. But overall, that would be cool if they made the card really crazy. But like honestly, they always do that with David Benavidez cards. Like that's why David Benavidez always gets watched a lot because his cards are usually always pretty good, and shit like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, and stuff like that. So I mean, they can promote that fight. And I would definitely watch that fight, but I'm just saying if you're gonna be putting money on put money on David Benavidez. Like I wouldn't recommend of anybody putting well, I mean you can, but I just feel like it's proven that you're gonna most likely lose your money if you're gonna bet against David Benavidez, man. And shit like that. Like there's no betting bro, you're gonna just continuously go and lose your money, man, if you keep on betting it. Unless unless if he fights two people, Dimitri Bivol or Archer Beterbiev. Those are the only two fighters, in my opinion, that actually can be able to have potential to winning, and shit like that, and that's the thing and shit. But honestly, I feel like Benavidez is proving that, that I wouldn't be surprised if he beat both of them, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And especially Archer Beterbiev. I wouldn't be shocked if he beat Archer Beterbiev, and shit like that. It would be a tough brawl. And either way, if he beat Archer Beterbiev and he fought Archer again, then it's going to be a lot tougher of a fight the next time. Because we all know of how good of a fighter Archer Beterbiev is, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit like that, But that's the thing and shit, so yeah, and stuff like that, But yeah, man, but that fight, I mean, that's the next fight, and, that's the fight that, I'm not gonna just go and complain about and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit like that, you know what I mean? If that's the fight and shit like that, but shit, he could go and, fight, somebody, shoot, I don't even know, fucking give Charlo his first loss, I don't even know. There's so many fights and shit like that besides Zurdo, but I could understand why, because he's just trying to go up in weight and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But it's just but I just feel in cruiserweight, bro, what if you're gonna be having to against J.O. Pataya? I'm not I wouldn't be shocked if he beats J.O. Pataya, but I'm just saying but Pataya though, man, I'm just saying that's a very dangerous puncher to go against, man, and shit like that, you know what I mean? You're gonna have I'm just saying, man, Opataya is a very dangerous puncher. Not saying he wouldn't be able to get beat, because I mean, look at Maurice Breedis. I mean, he put up a very good fight against Jay Opataya both times too. Instead that, especially that second time, he really showed that he still can still fight and can still fight tough fighters and win, and stuff like that potentially and shit like that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit. But so I mean, in that kind of sequential situation, I mean, that is the truth. But I mean, styles make fights realistically, and every fight has a different type of preparation, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Opataya is gonna be ready for Benavidez. I'm just saying, same for Benavidez too. But I'm just saying, that boy Opataya is going to be ready at all costs against David Benavidez. Oh shit. Against David Benavidez. I'm proving out where it's just more of I don't really think any fight I'm really gonna bet against David Benavidez realistically. Because I mean unless if it really didn't make any sense. But I mean that Opataya fight makes sense. And shit like that, in my eyes and shit, and stuff like that, because it's just more of at the same time and shit, it's Opataya is still, that, he could still be able to hang with Opataya. But I'm just saying, Opataya is a big cruiserweight, man. I'm just saying, I'm pretty sure, because Opataya, I'm thinking, because Opataya is, what, maybe, maybe they're the same height, but I think Opataya is more taller, and he's more lengthier too, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? So in that case and scenario, getting into that distance of Opataya is not gonna be very easy for Benavidez. We all know Benavidez is still gonna figure out a way to doing that, and shit like that, you know what I mean? But now Opataya, let's see what he can do about that. And I feel like that's a better fight for him than Zerto, in my opinion, and shit like that, like, I'm just saying, and shit, like, if you want to go up to that weight class, like, you should just try to go and fight Opataya, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But honestly, though, but, like, what about, like, all these fights with Dimitri Bivol, Archer Beterbiev, like, what about these fights, you know what I mean? Like, what about these fights, like, what are they going to do about these fights and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, and stuff like that, because it's like, and I'm just saying, oh yeah, because I think the fourth fight, and shit like that, or is it the fourth fight? No, the third fight, and stuff like that, because the third fight with Archer Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol, that's in the works right now, and stuff. So that's basically official, but they're just trying to get negotiations right and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And stuff like that, you know what I mean? But I have a feeling that fight might not be over here in the States and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And stuff like that, just because they're probably going to be more of a bigger audience somewhere else for that fight, and shit like that, you know what I mean? But, but either way, I mean, there would still be a big audience, and I'm hoping that there would be a big audience for that fight over here in the States, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, but with David Benavidez, though, like, that's the reason why he's not fighting them right now, because and shit like that, and David Benavidez isn't trying to wait either, and shit like that, you know what I mean? So by the time when they even fight each other, he might be more bigger and bulkier and shit like that when they end up fighting each other, with Benavidez and like between Benavidez and Bivol or Archer Beterbiev, and stuff like that, and that's the thing and shit, So there's so many fights out there for Benavidez, after this fight, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. But for Anthony Yarde, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like, with Anthony Yarde and shit like that, I just think he just needs to rest for a sec, and shit like that, he needs to give that chin a little bit of a break, and shit like that. Like, I'm just saying, and shit like that, But there are some good fights out there for him, and shit like that. There's, like, who's in the fucking in the light heavyweight division, and shit like that, like, honestly, it would be a good fight. Like, I don't know if they fought each other or not and shit like that, But I feel like between Callum Smith and Anthony Yarde, I feel like that would be I feel like, guys, I would watch that fight. I mean, I would probably favor Callum Smith by knockout, and stuff like that, like, because like in my opinion and stuff like that, because I just feel like Callum Smith is more because I just feel like Callum Smith is more what is it called and shit, like, it's just like, first and foremost, he has a better chin, and second of all, like, he's more of a better boxer, more of a better technical boxer than Anthony Yarde, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But either way, I would still like to see that fight though, and shit like that, But overall and shit, like, I just feel like with Anthony Yarde and shit like that, it's like, I just feel like he's kind of just, like, not on the level like a lot of these guys are. Like, honestly, like, I do feel like he can be good on his own level, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Like, he still is the fighter that can be promoted. But it's just more of, like, I just feel like, if he's getting any of that big payday fights and shit like that against these big-ass, because these big fighters and shit, like, we already know, like, he ain't gonna win that fight, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And especially now that, like, I don't even got him beating Callum Smith, even though Callum Smith is a good fighter, but I'm just saying, like, either way, like, he's not on, like, the high level like that anymore, and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, it just, like, he's just kind of just just kind of more just a high contender that can get beat, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, but I don't see Yarde beating him and shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, in all due respect, and stuff like that, Hamza Shiraz would knock his ass, like, absolutely out, and stuff like that, like, I think they're in the right division. No, I know Hamza's in the 168, but he could still go up to 175 for that fight though, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit. But I'm just saying, man, it's just, I just don't really know, man, and shit like that. I just feel like Yarde's chin is just, like, if he didn't have a bad chin, I feel like he would honestly be a very, very crafty and a very good fighter, like, almost like, almost like Erickson Lubin, and shit like that. Erickson Lubin would be a really, really, really good fighter if it wasn't that his chin wasn't very weak and shit, and stuff like that. And I don't know if I came out with the video. I don't think I did, of the fight with him and Virgil Ortiz, but yeah, he got knocked the fuck out in that fight, and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, like them ropes fucking held him up and shit, and the ref saved him, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, but almost like Erickson Lubin, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing and shit, or like exactly like Erickson Lubin, and shit like that, you know what I mean? And that's the thing and shit, and stuff like that, but yeah, man, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But this was, a good main event. The card was really cool, and stuff like that, and I'm gonna do a video about that and stuff like that, when I can and stuff like that, but yeah, and stuff like that, you know what I mean? But yeah, but thank y'all for watching this video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'm Preston. Peace out. But actually it was a 7th round TKO victory for David Benavidez. So just so y'all can know. Peace out, y'all. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Love y'all. Peace out.